Hi, I apologize for that, so I will just hold my phone and do the broadcast. So I'm sorry, you're going to have to log back on. So I'm just going to wait about 30 seconds or so. But if you are rejoining me, oh yeah, there's the faithful people figured it out. They said, whoops, she had a. So I started off this reboot of the Power Hour today on Monday. That duct tape does not solve all. So I'm restarting again, and I'd like to welcome you again to the Native Wellness Power Hour. And today I wanted to share with you like thinking and having this opportunity to really use this medium to continue our journey together. I think our commitment as Indigenous people, as in our journey, our wellness journey together, it's always such a privilege for me. And I also, it helps me stay connected. Prior to this, with one of my relatives, we were looking at social media and all the family pictures from yesterday, and it's so nice to see people on social media that I have not seen for over a year. And I have a lot of colleagues that, I consider them they're not even my colleagues, they're like my extended cousin family, my relative family. And to be able to see them, and people that I haven't seen for decades, really, decades, that to see them appearing on social media, it kind of like gives me, makes me feel good that they've made it to this time of the year. And I just wanted to be mindful today that the topic is wellness and Earthtime. And among my people, but also I've heard this in different versions in other tribes, or other Indigenous communities. We always wish each other well at the beginning or fall or winter. See you when the green grass starts to grow. Well, today, when I was leaving my house earlier today, I'm about, 30 miles north of my house. I moved a snow shovel because I needed it because it snowed overnight to clear the steps. And underneath it was all this green grass coming up. And really what it needed was water, because yesterday we had extreme, dust storms. And, but also our soil is already dry in the lower elevations out of the mountains. So I was really happy to see that green grass. But that saying also has another in it. It's also that when you knew in the past, before cars, before the social media, before texting, telephone, the people would make their winter camp. And sometimes there were times when they came together, but there was truly, the green grass was a sign of hope. And it was at that time and this time is the recognition that, the earth really has its own flow, its own rebalancing. And that term, climate change, I mean, sometimes it's funny, the English language, because I'm pretty sure the climate was changing before humans noticed. But there is really like a grace in the change of seasons. And when you see the earth coming, okay, now I'm going to pause because of technology and make sure that little ding doesn't come across again. So you're just going to see my face as I do this. Okay. Ta-da! But to really be mindful during this time that it's like permission to celebrate when you greet those long-term or, long time relatives or friends, and maybe you get to go to your a gathering that was particularly prior to the pandemic and all the last year, something that you've really looked forward to. This is also the time in the green grass time where there's permission. It's like an encouragement, more than permission. It's like an encouragement to celebrate coming together for people for no other reason than you are together. And I think, or in the time we're living in, that to really encourage people, we are asked once again to adapt, to change, to pivot, to create new expressions of our way of life that sustains us during this time. And those lessons are supported by the natural world. I have a colleague, and one time, English, it's like a fascinating little language there. So one time I said, if we stop being human-centric for a while, it's like we learn to trust again the movements of the earth, of the natural world, of all the wisdom that is collectively held there. And last night was supposed to be a night when you could see the meteors and the alignment of stars that's starting now. But there was cloud cover. But I trust that those stars and those meteors, they were doing what they know they're supposed to do. They have their own function and pattern in creation. And I trust they're going to do what they must. Do what they're supposed to do. So it's kind of like also that encouragement you get from, even if you're having a fantastic day, whatever type of day you're having, and maybe it's gray clouds where you're at, or you don't get to see at night those constellations, just trust that they're still happening. And they're still happening, and you're still part of that experience. But you yourself may not see it with your eye, but that doesn't mean it's not happening or that it's not as magnificent. Because I think right now, to be witness to this time of year, and at the dawn time during this short segment, it's not for very long, the color of the dawn changes. And we have really nothing to do with that. That's creation. And we are part of that. So we are the witness to that global light show. And a lot of people are familiar with the Northern Lights. And, I feel particularly privileged that in my life, I can remember driving along a dark highway in central Manitoba, and I was with one of my friends. So we were driving along, and all of a sudden, only car on the road, a couple Indian chicks. We came upon this clearing, this break, and we could start seeing the Northern Lights. And I always carry that as kind of one of the treasures of my life, that I had that moment where I was gifted that privilege of seeing, of experiencing that unique, just beautiful, wonderful experience of seeing what the earth does when it's being just as itself. And so during this time, as we're all changing, we're trying to figure out what's next, right? So the other thing that I remember, I consciously have told myself, every day, no matter what, I have to stay outside. I have to spend some time outside. And wherever you're at, whether it's in the middle of nowhere or, in the city or on a subway, to move outside of your safe zone, if it's safe for you. And I think as more and more of our communities during this pandemic, as we are starting again, it's kind of like, if prior to the pandemic, if you put your foot in the water, let's say there was a creek or a river by you, and you put your foot in there, it was cold. It's probably going to be still cold after the pandemic. But that's how we kind of are now, kind of putting our toes or, checking out what this time will bring. And there's a difference, like the earth encourages us. It's kind of like, look what I'm doing now. And I always look forward in our world to, you could be very far away from them. And when the cottonwoods, which are particular, they're one of the companions to our culture. So when you feel the cottonwoods change, and you feel it because the air changes, and you can smell them very, very far off. Now, some people have a different relationship to those cottonwood buds when they pop and then they fall, because they have a really hard-coated resin. But if you have ever been to the northern or eastern slope of the Rocky Mountains, you know that wind here is different than it is in other parts of the United States. We commonly have what, can shut down a whole state on the East Coast. Our winds come because it's kind of like where the wind talks to the mountains, and they change once they pass, once they have their meeting, if you want to say the wind with the mountains. The winds come down onto the prairie, and sometimes you got to, even me, I'm full grown. I'm a full-bodied Indian. And sometimes those winds have the ability to bluster me sideways, knock me sideways. And so when you're a tree, the cottonwoods, right, they're doing what they're supposed to. They need those types of sticky seeds and seed pods. So before, when I had been away from home for a long time and I was at another springtime, I would pick up those sticky pods off the ground or somebody's car, because that's why people get irritated with them. And I would put them in a bag so I could inhale them. Because to me, that meant that there was a lot of promise. There was a lot of promise in the action of the natural world, of the earth and all its relatives. And I also have another friend, Sharon Day, that she was doing a special call out before the pandemic about a tree, a water, like kind of tree of life of water. And it was part of an awareness building movement. But she asked people to randomly send in leaf shapes. And the first thing that came to my mind was the cottonwood leaf, because this is kind of also an indication of that tree. Where there is cottonwoods, there is water. And where there is water, there's cottonwoods. And so that's not something I invented. That's something that was prior to, maybe the first Naswitipi landing, or, emerging on this planet. And I also heard when, it's over 10 years ago now, when an international body convened all the indigenous knowledge keepers, or the ones they could find. And they made a point to go around globally to talk about what they had observed as the northern people. And they were then talking about people of the Arctic Circle. And I had heard a presentation by one of them when she had said, here she was, this professional Indian, and she had traveled wide and given lectures and doing sharings and stuff. And when she was flying home, she had looked out of the plane, the small plane, and she seen a poplar tree growing on the tundra. And she felt she had a hot, where you hold your breath because it startles you. And so she went home and she told, she was looking for an explanation. And when she talked to the knowledge keepers in her part of the world, they weren't surprised. They had that prophecy, that telling, that traditional knowledge shared, that when the poplar trees start moving north, that means that a different change is going to come. And so, because they met that change, she was comforted by their knowledge. But it's also by observing. If we all look at one leaf, or like the cottonwood bud, some people get irritated at it this certain time of year, because it sticks on the automobile, or maybe their dog, or maybe their shoe, or their hair, and other people's experience looking at that same bud is different. Because what it makes me feel like, and it's just their response, that's a great thing about the human family right now. We're like the variety muffin pack from Costco. We come in all those variations and flavors, and you can look at something and either look to understand it better, or draw on maybe teachings that you've heard or an experience that you've shared with people. But those leaves, those buds, remind me that the people are going to gather in the warm weather. And we're still, I come from the Blackfoot Confederacy, so we're what people, geopolitically call us a border tribe. So there are over, I think, 62 border tribes in the U.S., so on both borders. But we come from a connection where that imaginary line is, the cottonwoods don't just grow to the Canadian border and say, we can't, they closed the border. They are in their own rhythm because they're part of the rebalancing of the earth. And to know that their cousins, the other poplar, the poplar trees, they are rebalancing also. So when I heard that story from the woman from the Arctic, one of the Arctic Circle cultures, I felt encouraged, because I know, having traveled and seen so many magnificent things, but also where I live, to see the reemergence of a blade of grass after, like the 50 below winter, or the torrential winds that we had last week, or the wild, 35,000 acre wildfire we had last week. To see a blade of grass say, aha, I'm here. I'm announcing the green grass time. And I just felt so encouraged to see that blade of grass this morning. And I felt kind of also like, I made it. I made it to the green grass time. And the earth is, there's a lot of teachings about the earth, but the earth is our medicine. And that means that just like other medicines that have come to us from the earth medicines, they already know their role in how we begin to, graced by whatever gift they bring to this creation, is through relationship. And so to look forward to, again, going out among my earth relatives, all those plant medicines, and forming a relationship with them, because I need them. I needed all the medicines that I gathered last summer. I needed those reminders of that whatever hardship it was, or celebration, or thing I didn't get to attend, or when I'd see a new baby born, I'd give thanks for that, even though I haven't seen that baby in person. And then a lot of our people have made their journey to the spiritual world, and just really, I needed those medicines to arrive at the green grass time. And I was looking at in my house where I have them hanging up, and I was thinking, I didn't use all of them, so I felt real good. I was like, I got extra. So, but as I plan now what I'm going to do this summer to keep up that relationship with all the earth medicines, I know now I have to start making my preparations. And regardless of, we're all different in the indigenous world, and so we have many teachings, and all of them are right. That's, I think, the beauty of being from cultures that form relationships with the natural world, with the birds, with the plants, with the wind, with the stars, that the diversity it's like that field of, earth flowers, that they bloom. They don't bloom all at once. Every flower has its own rhythm. Every plant has its own rhythm, its process. And then this morning, I was thinking about some of the news reports I had read, and I look for people news too, but this was like tree news. So I look for tree news too. And they had said that the cherry trees that had been cultivated for generations in Japan had bloomed a month early. And I was thinking about that. It was like, as far as I know, a cherry tree does not have to hang a calendar on its limbs to know what time it is. So I see those trees as encouragement that they adjusted, and they're encouraging us during this time to also adjust during the springtime. If it means that, maybe the pandemic has been a very, I think, healing time for Indigenous people, and particularly for the Indigenous people of the Americas, but all over the world. And as we had to remember those hard times of our ancestors, those other pandemics, the germ warfare, we had to remember that during that first year, and we overcame it. And you could see that it's visible because our communities are recovering, and we are planning for the warm weather. We've made it, all of us have made it to the green grass time. And that is really, we can feel that confidence that our people took action to make sure that there are generations after us, that we make it out of this season. But the earth is just doing its job. It's just doing what it was created to do. And in these times, that's the solace, the comfort that we can receive from the natural world is immeasurable, because in and of itself, it's part of the eternal process of creation, of living things in this galaxy, or in the many galaxies that exist. And so when I think about that teaching, see you when the green grass grows, or when the green grass comes again. And it has come to my part of the world. So it doesn't mean that I look at the ads, of grass growing, somebody's lawn growing, I don't know, in Florida, because I believe they have green grass all year round. I take that from my teachings of where I live, but I can appreciate it sets me in a different pattern. Now in Florida, they may have other things that occur in the springtime that I don't know about. And that's their indication that the earth's doing what it's going to do and what it must do. And so during this time, as you're preparing and adjusting to, it's kind of like, everybody, we had to pull in our reins, hold our reins back for a whole year. But we must, just like you don't jump into a river in early spring when there's still floating ice on it, because that temperature of the water may not be something you can bear yet. We must take a lesson from the earth, from the green grass, from the water, from the stones, the birds, that as we're moving along, there is a tempo to that also. And I feel that we are all encouraged to walk forward, not in fear. That yes, there are things out there that can still get us. And the pandemic, we are still in the pandemic. But I've seen indications of people coming to a time where they want to mark even some of the beautiful things we've enjoyed on social media, the social distance powwow, them making an announcement. Well, now that we're going to powwow back in person, that's what the indications are. We're thinking about, we're going to plan, for a transition. And just like the sunburn, if you've been cloistered all winter long, or you've been, in the pandemic in your house, and maybe your skin is a little, it's not seasoned, and you run out and you let the blaze on your skin, you might get a little burn. It's like we have to transition and we have to get our kit together. And I, one time I was in this indigenous theater group, and I was, some of the staff were older than me, but I was the oldest of the students. And I used to always take my bag with us when we'd go on trips, and they'd say, what do you got? What do you got in your bag? Or, somebody would cut their finger or something, and I'd reach in my bag and I'd pull out my Band-Aid and stuff. And so then a lot of them started saying, what's in your auntie bag? Ask Auntie Lori. And, I didn't know him before, except for, I met him a couple weeks before. But we're at that moment when you can start preparing what you're going to have in your uncle bag, your auntie bag, your mommy bag, your grandma bag, your grandpa bag. Because chances are, if you think about it, you already know what should go in there, right? We all still have to cover our beautiful ancestors' faces with the face mask. And don't try to cheat on the mask. There's so much information out there. Get the good mask. You're worth it. And if you have a lot of the good masks and your relative doesn't, then guess what? Gift them. We know we need to have a mask. You still have to wash your hands. The physical distancing is changing because it depends on really what has been your opportunity in your community concerning the vaccine. But we know we need to have our pandemic kit, right? You need to have it. And I seen these little masks. They were nicely made in one of the sewing stores. So I bought a couple of them, and I opened one, and I was like, this ain't made for an Indian face. But I kept them because those masks are the size for a child or a smaller person. And so in this kit, this bag, that you're going to make sure you have what's necessary, the extra, Band-Aids, the sandwich. The one thing I have always been known for is I've been many places, and even sometimes I'd be at a big doing, and somebody in charge cared so much for preparing that they forgot to eat. So I always carry food. And that's an old teaching from way back. And in the pandemic, I think it is a necessary tradition to support, that you make sure you can eat on your journey. That, yeah, everybody's looking to, I'm not saying when the Canadian border opens up, Ming's, the Chinese restaurant in Cardston, Alberta, will be overrun by people from Browning, but the Chinese restaurant, Ming's, in Cardston, Alberta, will be overrun by people from Browning. Because even in the pandemic, it would come up and people would say, oh, the border. And we'd talk about the geopolitical things, and then all of a sudden we'd talk about Ming's. But even if you plan to go to Ming's, you must have food that you bring from home. So you're preparing for your journey. And given the plants adapting and stuff, how do you form relationships with that plant medicine, with those earth medicines, with those gifts that we know we've been privileged by them sharing their lives with us? How do you form relationships with them? Is it carrying tobacco? Is it carrying another type of offering? So in your bag or in your travels, in your kit, in your car, those are places that you have time to place items that you know you will need. Because we've all now a year been in a collective wisdom gathering year. We are wise people. We are wiser than we were a year ago. And you maintain that wisdom, just like through all the cultural teachings, by practicing it. That's what it means to keep your traditions alive. You practice them. So if you are kind of hedging your bet, and my big dog just came in the room. She's a little under the weather. But if you are practicing your culture, then you are keeping it alive. You are an active wisdom keeper for the future generations. And really, that's what we all are. Whenever you practice what you know today, in any moment, you are keeping those teachings alive. And I think I have to, just so you're not privileged to all the background noise in the house, I got to close the door. That my big dog. She was just checking on me, like, hey, where are you? But she knocked the door open. Maybe I can get her to come in. Nope. So as we prepare to start making our journey out and looking at each other, because I don't know about you, but I plan at the first gathering where all the pandemic controls and protocols and safety measures are followed, I plan to do some heavy duty Indian staring. Because not that I go out and I see Indians every day, because I live on the reservation. That's who I see when I go to the store, gas station. But, there's so many Indians. It's like looking at, I don't want to say the stars in the sky. And I'm just going to be happy, whether I know them or not, that we all made it. I give thanks for that every day when I hear news or I see people. I'm just happy they made it. And I feel very grateful for that. And so this morning when I got up and I opened the front door and, the stairs were snow covered and there was a lot of snow and I could see it kind of hanging out on the electrical line. It was like, ooh, don't stay there too long, fall off. And when I checked as I was driving in, and seeing the earth receiving that moisture that fell overnight, I it was beyond gratitude I felt, because it's like I felt like I could take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. There's a lot of reassurance in the natural world for us, because we are not in control. It's okay not to be in control. You know, they got our back. The mountains got our back. The trees, the animals, the fish, the water, the winds. But we must do our part to uphold those relationships that throughout all our cultures we were given responsibility for. And responsibility is another word for teachings, for gifts of knowledge, for wisdom in the English language. And so we really are fortunate this time to be reminded of that when the springs come, when the grass comes, when maybe the migration of a fish comes, if you're from those cultures. All those little teeny signs that our ancestors read, and they accepted as, oh, this time is coming. I really, today, I give appreciation for that, for the earth holding the water. And I can remember traveling to warm climates, and I'd be talking with people, and then they would say, oh, how could you live there? There's so much snow. And then, like, water is life, keep water, you know, like the keep water sacred kind of, you know, movement and stuff. And so then I started trying to explain to them, well, snow is water. Snow is water. So just like if you see a spring in, I don't know, in Texas or somewhere emerging from the ground, that's water too. And the diversity of water and snow. And so everybody, like when they're talking about the snow we had, oh, it's that wet, good, heavy snow. And then the other thing that we observe, there aren't those winds, those hard winds that came in the days prior. They brought this wet snow. They brought this rain. And they helped the earth not to be so dry. So then now we start looking around a couple days, or maybe faster, start looking around for those first flowers. That tells us the other relatives are coming. So those first flowers of spring, those first buddings on the trees, the changes in the color of the bark, the changes in the ground itself, they're all saying, they're like the announcers, like the victory announcers. We've made it. And we are reassuring you, our other relatives from the plant world or the medicine world, they're on their way. And to really take a moment wherever you are, and maybe you're in the city and there isn't a lot of indigenous or free roaming plant worlds. You know, maybe there's parks. There's signs everywhere, even if it's a cultivated field. There are signs that the earth is changing. And it's announcing that the other relatives that come, the long grass, the sweet grass, the berries, all of those particular plants that start to emerge from their dream time in the winter. So the first blade of green grass is that. It's that announcement. Here we come. And it kind of like is our announcement also to get out of our little slumber, to begin to prepare. But also, you know, we're not through those hard times yet, because humans can make things really hard on each other. We see that in having to relive some of the atrocities that collectively, because of the pandemic and social media, many people were touched by those injustices. But if instead of looking at the progress or judging happiness or the vibrancy of creation by only human condition, you can get pretty weighed down. But if you look into the natural earth time, into the world, to the creation, those things say that whatever we have caused hardships between each other, those are temporary things, because they will not endure. As we form relationships again with the earth and with creation and negotiate on respect, equity, and equality of our shared existence with the non-human creation. We're part of creation, but there's so much in creation. We will move forward to things that will endure. And don't believe the only story that is going to endure is the one you see on the news media. That's a small little snippet of the human family. And I kind of bank on the earth and creation, the galaxy, the stars, the teachings. What that's saying is what can happen in the future is different than the pain we're enduring. So if you had a winter time of loneliness, if you had moments where you were just like, I just can't hear another pandemic story, or I'm gonna be like really radical and, go to the store and get my pop without a mask. No, don't do that. Because we are encouraged to live a different, more bountiful, more magnificent, more extraordinary time of creation. Because we are the living generation that is part of the earth rebalancing. We are the witness to collect the stories, to collect the wisdom, so our future generations can understand how we got through this. But we can't ignore that there are things that must be fixed. It's like, I want us all to be those glossy, beautiful, healthy cottonwood leaves. But in the human family, we're on our way. But also we have some maybe little fungus we need to take care of so we can be shiny and glossy and continue on. So I just wanted to acknowledge, that we are not through, but we are going through. We're moving towards the future. And as we continue to share our collective knowledge and we regather again in person, if there was something that prior to the pandemic used to not work for you, it's okay to let that go. It's okay to reemerge as a new person or a different person, right? You're still the same. Your skin is still got the miles on it, but to practice new ways of being, because this is the moment when we're coming out of a different way of being. And we need to take what worked, what we know we need to do, what is necessary for our communities to really live through this time and to live well and prosper, if you want to say. I feel like I should give the Vulcan sign. But also that if we look and we run into a relative and they've made some positive changes, maybe they're a little scratchy, maybe they were a little living a lifestyle different than at last time you've seen them, to accept people's new form. And I'm reminded of the old man flower or the crocus that grows after, it comes after the green grass starts, but it's the first flower here for my people. And that flower appears in different places, but it always comes back. And so if you see a relative, a friend, and they've made some positive changes in their life, there's no need to bring up the past. We have to find ways to let that go. We learn from it, but to encourage people to move forward in a positive way. That's what all our communities have demonstrated, is through their actions, collective actions. They have supported people. People have made it through this really different, in some ways the pandemic was really, for some communities, a very dynamic time. And for my people, it was. That's why, as, the Unspak and the southern community of the Blackfoot Confederacy, we demonstrated all the good work collectively, because it wasn't just one person. It was the whole community collectively joining in behavior so that we arrive today. And I give thanks for not just my community members, but for all the Indians that have made it to today. And so I'm reminded that when I see that green grass, it's not just one person. It's the people I don't even know. And so when I was, thinking about, because this is how my mind works, I go green grass, cottonwood, crocus, then all the other little flowers. And then my other excitement, which, I like to be transparent on these power hours, is when I first see the first berry blossom. And that sets me into a different mode, and then I got to add to my kit that I'm getting together now, to carry with in my car, and the different clothes that I carry in my car, till the first snow falls again. And so coming here today to share with you on the Power Hour about this special time that we are all experiencing and getting ready, right? We're getting ready to stare around at each other again and to possibly gather in ways we hadn't been able to. And what I've seen from people sharing their family time and their community's time, I've seen just people just so happy to be together, to be near a friend, a cousin, a relative. And we know we all have, it's like we're in another phase of our mission to make it through the pandemic. And we know we must carry those things forward. Everybody knows them. It's like a mantra. Somebody needs to make a song real quick. Well-fitting face mask. You got to keep your hands clean. And hopefully that carries on for a long time. I'm just saying. And, the physical distance when it's appropriate. If you are vaccinated, what does that mean? And it might not mean the same thing for your cousin. And if you can get vaccinated, then you can also, just like something, send that up to all the people, because there's some of our relatives that cannot. And not to judge them, not to not understand why they won't do it. Through your actions, you can help protect other people. And that's like, many times I've been in really extraordinary places in the world. And one of my thoughts was, I wish other people could do this. From my home community, from my family, from my friends, from my cousins. I wish they were here too. And then I had to understand that they are here. Because just like me, They are made up of the ancestors' lives. And as a living generation, when you take a step towards the goodness of all, you're taking all those ancestors' lives and you are stepping forward. And when the generations in the future look back at this time and they look at all the faces on social media, you know, they're going to look back and say, that's my ancestor. That's who I came from. That's who took care of me during this time. That's whose life I carry forward. And so, you know, I've seen a lot of things, you know, I am my ancestors. And I guess that's the encouragement I would give you, is to sit forward, take time out and think of what that really means. Feel what that means. That we love to travel in groups. And sometimes when you're alone, if that's your role in life, I've been places in the southern part of the globe, and I felt that. I felt that my people were there with me. And that gave me a sense that I was doing where I was, there's where I'm supposed to be. So as we come to the conclusion of today's Power Hour, that's my wish for you, is that what your journey is, the gifts that you carry forward, that you really can feel those, the magnificence of all those ancestors' dreams, of all their hopes, their prayers, their actions to survive what's come, you know, in the times behind us. And that they gave you the good road. And to appreciate that, they gave us the opportunity to use the gifts that the Creator has given to the living generation, to move forward with the earth, to reaffirm those relationships, to give honor to our way of life by practicing what you know today and in the future. So as we end this Power Hour, I think really, you know, somewhere kind of like, you know, the old radio signals that still, I guess, are blaring around space or something. When the future generations, you know, they'll probably just go like this and click on to the internet or something. But that they see these images that we're all creating and sharing, that they look back and know that we love them because we shared love with each other. We shared encouragement of each other as a living generation, and we celebrated each other. So I hope they know that the future generations, we not only loved each other through this time, but we loved them before they were even here. So I'd like to offer you, just a wish for your wellness today in the green grass time, and that Earthtime and all its chapters that are coming, they're starting again. It's fascinating. And to take time to even look at a rock, because that's a whole other Power Hour. So have a great day. I'm so glad you joined me and the Native Wellness Institute, and tune in noon tomorrow because somebody else is going to be here sharing the stories of this time. So have a good day. Take care.